This is Well Seeker Pro training for daily reporting, end of well operations. This is the final part in the daily reporting series. If you haven't watched them already, there are 2 other videos you should watch prior to this one. They are daily reporting job setup and daily reporting operations. In this video, we are going to look at the final stages of rounding up the daily reporting at the end of well. So we're going to start off where we finished up at the end of the daily reporting operating sequence of events, where we have completed a well and we have filled out all of our daily reporting data. The steps that I'm about to cover can be carried out by either the field personnel once they've finished their paperwork, or by the coordinators back in the office once the data has been sent back from the field, or both. The step I'm referring to is data validation, and this step should be carried out by all the field engineers prior to it getting sent back to the office, and also done by the person in charge of finalising reporting data within the office to confirm that's been done correctly by the field. There are a number of different data validation tools, some of which have been covered in the operations video for daily reporting. Where I'd start first is right-click on the actual wellbore in question, go to Reporting and Daily Activity Editor. We get a list of potential errors in our reporting data, and this is the Daily Activity Editor dialog. This basically has all of our daily activity information throughout our entire Wells daily reporting, all in one table. So what it will do is any discrepancies in data, it will highlight in red, and it works in a certain way. So if, for example, it spots an inconsistency in BHAs, it will highlight that in red. Same for depths, same for phases. So it's a quick tool for viewing instances. We also want to be checking that each BHA starts with a 6.0 pickup code and a 6P laydown code. So in this case, it's highlighted an issue with one of the BHAs for us. Scrolling down, we've got a BHA that's been included there. I just delete that. Again, we've got another BHA that looks incorrect there. We have a laydown code for the end of this BHA, but this BHA doesn't have a pickup code. It's got download MWD as opposed to pickup BHA. So that's something that needs to get changed. We have a depth issue here. Okay, so the end depth and start depth don't match, and it looks like in this case it's a simple typo where someone's missed a 0. Okay, again we've got the 6P laydown code incorrectly, and that looks like, for all intents and purposes, a quick check. Okay, once you're happy, hit apply, verify, and then close. Next, once we've checked the BHAs, the phases, pickup laydown codes in the daily activity editor, and the depths, I then go to daily reporting, and we can use the data validation tools within here as well. So we can go ahead and check activity against our slide sheet for all reports. And what this does is it looks at the activity information we've got in our description here, and it verifies that against the slide sheet. And we can see here we've got on day 1, we've got some sections that don't match the slide sheet, and on the 3rd day as well, we have sections that don't match the slide sheet. So we need to go and verify 0856 to 910. Okay, and we can see here that we've got a depth discrepancy, which is causing our issue. Okay, we can see in the description that we're 1990, but in here we've got a typo of 199. So I'll go ahead and change that, update my course length, and that should now be this particular report fixed there. activity against slide sheet. And then, okay, so everything on this report is now fixed. Now we've got on the 3rd of July, 5:35. So I'm going to go ahead and select the report for the 3rd of July, 5:35. What is our discrepancy here? Verify on my slide sheet what the information actually is. Okay, so what it's effectively telling us is that we have a drilling activity here, but it's not represented on the slide sheet. We could include that on the slide sheet, but if we did, we would have to include it as a 0 course length item. Because remember, we're talking about hole depth here for the start and end depth that we're utilising. So we could, in theory, include that in the slide sheet. But when we pulled it in, it would have been brought in as a rotate as opposed to drill cement activity. So it's just highlighting there's a drilling activity that isn't included in the slide sheet, which in this case is fine. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to update descriptions from slide sheet or reports. Okay, so that's all of our activity descriptions updated. Okay, I'm going to also verify that my drilling parameters from the slide sheet or reports. And effectively, this will update this section here with all of the latest information from the slide sheets. Once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and hit save. And hitting the save button runs some similar checks to the ones that occur in the daily activity editor. It checks for discrepancies in BHA, in phase, and in start and end depths. In addition to validating the daily reporting information, the user should also validate the performance report information for each BHA. So I'm going to open up my drill string editor, I'll start my first BHA, and then I'm going to go to my performance report. And in here, you can check that everything that should be updated is as updated as possible. So you can use the Get Data from DDR button. Again, you've got that within the Tools menu, and that will pull in, based upon what's in your daily reporting section, it will pull that in and pre-populate a large number of these cells already. Okay. Once you've done that, hit save. Depth in, depth out, and date in, date out should already be populated based upon your daily reporting information. To save that BHA and move on to BHA2. Repeat the same process. Tools, get data from DDR. That will update the information based upon what was already in the DDRs. And just verify any additional information that you might have. In this case, we've got MWD and failure information from the run. Hit save, close the dialog, and again, the depth in, depth out, date in, date out information should be correct by default from just pulling in information and it being populated in the performance report. Hit save. So, once we've completed validating our daily report and performance data information, those are the main key dialog sources that will dictate the information that's in our well statistics and consequently the data analytics section when your company's looking at all of the wells it's drilled and the data stemming from those. Once you're happy that you've validated all of your data, you can then go ahead and think about creating your final reports. So things to do first are check your report options, ensure that within the end of well report you have all of the reports included that you require to include in your end of well report. Once you've done that, you can move on to actually creating your end of well report. And you can either print end of well report from the main dialog, which will create an Excel report, across. This will include a summary, a well summary, statistics for the well, personnel report, cost tracking, tool tracking, field invoice, grouped invoice, tool inventory, tool utilization, depth versus time, activity summary, so all the KPI charts, survey report, copies of your daily reports, your copies of your BHA reports, performance reports for each BHA and MWD reports, if applicable, these slide sheets, daily cost reports. Okay, so those are all available based upon your end of well report settings for what you include in your report. You can also print to PDF by going print PDF reports, print end of well report. Okay, contains all the same information. As your Excel report. Okay, so now we've sorted out our reporting to summarize our entire well. Now we need to think about moving on from this particular well. So one thing you might do is you might tidy up your inventory and then think about shipping tools. Now, in some cases, the tools are going to remain on location because you're going to skid the rig and you'll be working off the same pad. We'll move on to that scenario later. In other cases, you might be leaving location and have to create the paperwork for backloading your equipment. In the scenario where you're looking to backload equipment, first of all, we need to set up the addresses for where they're getting backloaded from and to. So in order to do that, go to this little house icon on the daily reporting toolbar for shipping addresses. This will open up a list of addresses that we can ship from and to. Once you've set those up, you can then go to the truck icon on the toolbar to create your shipping ticket. From here, much like the drill string editor, you need to add a ticket in order to start editing and building it. Once you've added it, you can give it a ticket number and a date, and then you can select from the drop-down menu, which is populated based upon your shipping addresses, where you're shipping it from and where it's getting shipped to. You can add any comments about the shipment here, and then based upon your selection, you can then go ahead and print your shipping ticket. Again, you can print Excel and to PDF. There's a quick method to selecting all of these. We've got the in Tools, Select All. We've also got Unselect All. There's also, if you've updated your inventory with the Ready for Backload checkbox, any items that are selected in your inventory as ready for backload, you can select all at once as well. Okay, so that's the scenario where you're backloading equipment from the site and creating shipping tickets. Now we're going to look at updating our well status. So, currently we're set as active. Based upon your company's procedure, you can either update to TD, complete, end of well report ready, or end of well report sent, depending on what your company want you to input at this stage in operations. Once you've updated your well status, hit save. This updates in your database, and if you're connected to the server and pushing data back, it will update the server database with this information, which allows your coordinators and management team to be aware of the status of any wells that are currently ongoing. Okay, so we've effectively completed this well. We're in a position where we're happy, and all that has to be done is back in the office, they will do a final QC of it, and they will update the status to verified once they're happy with that. But there's a couple scenarios we haven't really covered here. One is that we are moving to another well on the same pad. What is the best way about moving and creating a new well to start that next section. What is the best way to take our existing data, avoid duplicating all of it manually, and starting up a new well? Well, the two things that are probably going to remain the same are the inventory and the BHAs, potentially, if you're drilling very similar wells on the same pad. And I'm going to show you how you can move those both very quickly and simply. I'll close down my daily reports. I'll close down my slide sheet. So we're now in the scenario where we have acquired our next well's information, whether that's been pulled down from the server or imported via a WellSeeker Pro export file or a Compass EDM export file, or manually entered by the user. Regardless of how it's got here, we're going to move the inventory data from our previous well into the new well, i.e. all the kit is remaining on site. We are not going to have to manually input it again. We're just going to go ahead, take that inventory information and move it across. So first of all, I select my previous well that we've just completed and open up the inventory. I then go to Transfer Tools. Based upon this, I will then select all, and that checks this checkbox down the side here. I can uncheck items that I don't want to transfer over to a new rig, but in this scenario I'm going to take them all. Okay, but this is editable. And then go to select my operator field, facility, well, and then actual well. Once these are all selected, I will hit transfer. This is now updated this whole inventory so that the tools are no longer on location, i.e. on location has been unchecked for every single one of the tools I had selected. I'm going to hit save and close. I go over to my new well, 4H, open up the inventory, and we can see that the entire inventory has been pulled across into my new well's inventory. So that saves a huge amount of time and duplication in that case. Next, I'm going to show you how to copy across BHAs, because again, BHAs may be very similar between different jobs on the same pad. So again, I select my old well, and I'm going to open up the drill string editor. Okay, I can then use the import-export function, and I can export BHA. I then get the option to export one or multiple BHAs to a file. I'm going to export both, hit export, and you can create this export BHA file. I'm going to save it on my desktop. Now I can leave that export file for as long as I want to, and when the time comes that I need to use it, I'll then go to my well of interest that I'm going to start using it in, open up the drill string editor, go to import and import BHA. I then select the BHA export file that I made earlier from the previous well and select whatever BHAs I want to import. So in this case, I'm just going to pull in the surface BHA. And you can see that it's pulled in that information. Now some things you might want to delete are instance of drilling hours, circulating hours, things that have been brought in from the previous. But you'll see the performance report is blank at this stage. Okay. Again, depth in, depth out, date in, date out. These are things that you'll need to update based upon this specific BHA. But it's a very quick way of not having to re-input all of this information all over again. We've looked at how to finish up your end of well reporting and print your end of well reports and update the well status. We've also looked at the scenario where you are backloading equipment for the rig and creating shipping tickets. Also looked at moving information across from one well to another well that may be on the same pad, so the likes of your inventory and some of the BHA designs may be the same, so you can move those across very easily. What we haven't looked at is a sidetrack scenario. So you're in a particular well, and for whatever reason, you have to plug back and sidetrack off your existing well bore, whether that be planned or unplanned. How do I carry over my reporting information from what I've got, and what is the correct and best way to deal with that? We're going to cover that now. So first I'm just going to delete 4H that we just made, just to avoid any confusion, and we're going to look at 3H. So right now we have 3H here, which is our mother bore. We're going to create a scenario where we actually have to sidetrack this, and I'm just going to call this one Cerberus 14-28 3H ST LH ST. Okay, we keep the same vertical section, same rotary table elevation, same magnetics. To sidetrack from an existing well, we need to select the well is sidetrack option, select the mother bore, and select the depth of the sidetrack. So in this case, we're going to sidetrack in the intermediate section, and we're just going to call it 8,000 foot measured depth. This will go ahead and create your survey program based upon the mother bore information we already have in place. And I hit apply. Go ahead and create a survey as well. And select my tie-in point at the intermediate at 8,000 feet measured depth. Okay, so that should be my sidetrack point in place. So, depending on your company's procedure, you will have to treat these as two separate wells to do this correctly, i.e. two separate actual well bores. But depending on your company procedure, you may have them under the same job number, you may have them as separate job numbers. Depending on how you approach it, you can either have all of your reporting for both of these wells, i.e. the mother bore and the sidetrack well, all under the same actual well bore, or you can have them under separate. But regardless of which of those you're going to do, you still go through this same step. If you select your mother bore, right click, go to reporting, and go to export reporting data. We create a reporting export file. I'm saving it to my desktop, and then go to your sidetrack, right click, hit reporting, and go import reporting data. Gives you the warning that any reporting data that you've currently got in place under this actual well bore is going to be overwritten. I'm going to select yes and select our reporting export file. And now that has pulled in all of our reporting data from the mother bore. So all 4 days that we've got in there. Yep, all of our BHAs. All of the inventory information. All of the reporting information from the mother bore has now been pulled into the sidetrack. Depending on how your company wants to deal with it, that information is still here in the mother bore. So effectively, you've got duplicates of the same information. If you wanted to have all of the information for the 2 wells under the sidetrack, you would go ahead and delete the information from the mother bore, because effectively, for data analytics purposes, you don't want 2 wells with duplicate information, i.e. you don't want 2 surface sections that are identical in there, because you only drilled 1. So you would effectively, within an area, have 2 sets of footage for the same surface section, which isn't technically accurate. So you would delete the information from the lateral and have it all under your sidetrack well, so that you have all of that there, or you would take keep everything as it is in the mother bore, and for the sidetrack you would go ahead and delete all of the information up to the start of your sidetrack, so that you're not having overlapping duplicated data for your mother bore under the Sidetrack, if that makes sense. The easiest way to do that would be deleting the daily reports themselves, okay, but keeping one of them and changing the date so that you still retain all of your well personnel details, most of the input data that you've already got in place, and just change that for the first day of operations on your Sidetrack. Same for your BHAs. Go ahead and delete the BHAs that aren't relevant to the operation. So in this case, we're kicking off in the intermediate. I'd go ahead and get rid of the surface. Okay. In order to do that, I would have to first remove any reference to that BHA in the daily activity editor. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Change my date. Got my times in. I've cleared out my activity. Clear out my parameters. And hit save. Then I go back to my drill string and delete the first BHA. So that in a nutshell is the end of well reporting setup, so data validation, printing the reports themselves, looking at backloading equipment and setting up shipping tickets, updating the well status, moving well data from one well to another on the same pad, and then how you deal with Sidetracks in reporting data. We're now going to go ahead and look at some quick questions and then an example for you to work through. Right, we're going to go over a few short questions. If you don't know the answer straight away, pause the video, go back and review the video to find the answer for yourself. So first question, what are the main dialogues that should be quality checked in order for the data analytics and key performance indicator data to be correct? The answer is the daily report and BHA performance report dialogues. This is where the vast majority of the information for your well statistics, your key performance indicators, and data analytics data comes from. Next question. If a user wants to move all the daily reporting information from one actual well to another, how would they go about doing this? The method is select the actual well bore that you want to export the data from, right-click and select Reporting, Export Reporting Data, then select the actual well bore that you want to import the data to, and right-click on that in the database tree and select Reporting, Import Reporting Data. Next question. Why is it important to update the well status correctly? The answer, the well status is used by supervising personnel to monitor the number of and status of ongoing wells. If the status is filled in incorrectly, the supervising personnel may not be aware of any status changes. So this applies in the situation where your company is running a master database. So whether you're sending in local copies of your database on a daily basis, and that gets uploaded to a local master database, or whether you're pushing back information to a server master database, effectively your supervisors will have a dashboard utility where they can monitor all the wells going on. And those are influenced on how they view those by the job status selected. So it is very important that you select the correct status of your well whenever it starts or whenever that status changes. Now on to the exercise phase. So the exercise I want you to go through to solidify the information you've just received is open the provided database file that came with this video. Validate the data using the tools available. So as with the example, there will be some incorrect information there that needs cleaned up. Then go ahead and edit the report settings for your end of well report within the daily reports dialog. Once you're happy with the individual sheets and options you've selected for that end of well report, go ahead and create the end of well report and view the information that's been printed off. become familiar with that and see where the information within Well Seeker comes from and how it is output within that report. Next, go ahead and update the well status. Then go on and create another actual well bore that sidetracks off of the current actual well bore. And once you've done that, transfer all the reporting data to this sidetracked well. Once you've moved the data across to the sidetracked well, edit the daily reporting data as required to continue reporting for the sidetracked well, using the methodology that your company would go ahead with in the scenario they sidetracked a well. Then once you've done that, create another actual well and transfer the inventory and copy some BHAs over to this actual well bore. So the last two parts of that exercise are effectively simulating sidetracking for your existing well, and then once that's complete, going ahead and skidding the rig to another slot on the pad and retaining a lot of information in the process. If at any point you become stuck carrying out these exercise steps, refer back to the video for a refresher on how to go about doing that. That concludes the third and final part of the daily reporting training for Well Seeker